All right. Hi, everybody. This is Sal Maiorana from Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. And it is Scouting Combine week. So I am at Indianapolis for 4 fun-filled days at the convention center. And my guest today is Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports. He is their draft analyst. And Luke has been doing this for quite a while. Luke, welcome to the show. Glad you're here with me.
Hey, glad to be here, Sal. Good to catch up again, buddy.
All right. So we're going to obviously believe in Bills. We're going to be heavy on Bills today. We're not going to have to go too deep into the draft class, but we're going to stick to Bills topics. And Luke, why don't you just give me your overview of the Bills situation right now as they go into this coaching change and Jim Leonard changing the defense over. Give me some overview on what you think the Bills are going to need to do, especially on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting, right? And they're not the only team in this boat, right? Where they have like an elite franchise quarterback that they want to build around, and it's not like they don't need certain things on offense to kind of help Josh Allen. But one of the best ways to help a quarterback is to make sure you have a defense that's not giving up 25, 30 plus points a game, and can close out games, when you need them to in the fourth quarter, can get stops and not force you to have to put 40 points on the board all the time. And so I think, like you said, bringing in Jim Leonard and the coaching, obviously on the offensive side, you're not expecting much to change with Joe Brady, but the defensive side, it's always a challenge when you bring in a new coordinator and a new scheme and system, because all the personnel that you've had up until that point were, specific to the scheme you had before, specific to the personnel that you need for those skill sets. And, it's a different era of the NFL where, 15, 20 years ago, it was, are you a 3-4 team or are you a 4-3 team? That really doesn't exist anymore in the way that we're used to it when I was growing up, at least, when it was like, oh, if you're a 3-4 base team, you have your big nose tackle in the middle, you have your big ends, and then you have your kind of, athletic outside linebackers. And if you're a 4-3 team, those positions and those body types and those skill sets are a bit different. And you have those 3 off-ball linebackers. For a while now, most defenses are in nickel or dime or something 50, 60% of the time at least, right? So whatever your base is, you're in nickel. You've got 5 DBs plus on the field pretty much all the time, because teams are always in 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. They're doing a lot of different things. And so it has changed a lot of the specializations in terms of like, oh, we have to have this specific type of body at this position. So it's a little bit different. All that to say is I don't know that it's as hard to turn over that personnel as it used to be. Mm-hmm. But what it does mean is you have to identify what are the positions that you have to have high quality players at in order for your scheme to work at all, right? And obviously we've seen the basic tenets haven't changed, right? Can you get after the passer? Can you get off the field on third down? Can you stop the run? Can you put them in third and long? Those things are all universal. And so regardless of what Jim Leonard brings to the table for Buffalo, you look at this roster and you say, we need more impact players getting after the quarterback. We need to be able to stop the run. And we've got to have guys on the back end that can take the ball away. And I think, there's some guys that impressed. We've seen some flashes from Gregory Rousseau as a pass rusher. Obviously, Ed Oliver, when he's healthy, he's one of the most disruptive interior guys in the league. Cole Bishop, I think, made a huge leap last year at the safety position, but that, they need 2 of those guys. They still need help at that position. And so on that side of the ball, I feel like there's a need at every level. I think depth at linebacker was exposed when they had some injuries. And so there's a lot for that defense to account for, even with the, again, the new coordinator, the new scheme will have a lot to do with it, but they just need more talent, Sal. They need more playmakers at every level on that side of the ball. And at the same time, they're still searching for that go-to receiver for Josh Allen on the offensive side of the ball. They're still searching for that guy that can be on every third down, on every red zone trip. That's the guy you have to roll coverages to. You have to double that guy. You have to do all those things. They just don't have that guy on the field right now. They've got great role players. They've got guys like Khalil Shakir. Again, Dalton Kincaid when he's healthy. They've got guys that in certain roles can do certain things well, but man, they don't have that overall complete player that can dominate one-on-one matchups, that can be the go-to target all of the time, even the way Stephon Diggs was in his prime, where he wasn't necessarily physically dominant, but he could always get open. He could always give you something on those third and shorts. And so I think that's the focus, man. I mean, if they can't find that number one receiver for Josh Allen, they have got to load up on help for the defense at every single level on that side of the ball.
Yep, I can't disagree with anything you said. You're absolutely right. This team lacks elite talent. They have the elite quarterback. They have the elite running back. They've got some good offensive linemen. And after that, they're a lot of average on the Bills. It's funny you brought up the scouting part of this, because that was I asked Jeremiah did a podium thing yesterday in Indy, and I managed to get a couple Bills questions in, and that was one of the ones I asked him was, with the changeover to the 3-4, the Bills scouts spent the entire fall scouting Sean McDermott players, right? For his defense, for his culture. And I asked Jeremiah, I mean, what does that do to a team when they've changed their coach, they're going to change their scheme, and now you've got to look at players through a different lens? And his response was interesting to me, Luke, in that he said it really shouldn't change the evaluation. And you write your report up, you put your grade on it, and now you just tweak it to look at where that player would fit in your defense. He said it's a little bit less taxing than you think it is. And really, I get the sense from Brandon Beane and from Joe Brady that they're going to try to play a defense with Jim Leonard that will be a little bit positionless on the front line. Now, it's interesting. I was talking to a Denver writer today, and I was trying to get a sense, because I keep saying there's no nose tackle per se, a true nose tackle on this Buffalo roster. They have some guys that can play 3-tech and 4-eye, but nobody over the center. So I asked one of the reporters, I'm looking at the PFF snap counts, right? And it looked like Denver really didn't play a true nose very often. Their guys, Allen and Malcolm Roach, they were sort of in the 4-eye, 3-tech role. Yep. So maybe the Bills don't need a nose tackle. Give me your perspective on that. What do you think about that? Because I keep saying, who's going to be the nose in a 3-4? But maybe they don't need one.
Yeah, I think, there's two different ways to look at that. There's, if we want to run our defense this way, like say we want to have that traditional nose guy, right? That guy that's 320 plus, that can plug up, take up double teams and leave everybody one-on-one and plug up the inside against the run. Well, then you just got to go find that guy, and that's fine. And I think this draft class in particular has quite a few that I think can handle that role. But you can approach it and say, hey, this is, if we don't have that guy, what do we do? And I think that's the league has moved more and more towards, not everybody, but particularly the best defenses, I think, have moved to the point of, and this is kind of gets to Daniel's point, to DJ's point about positionless football and kind of just tweaking a little bit. I think teams should always be more focused on, can I just get the best football players on my roster and trust my coaching staff to mold what we do schematically to what those players do well. And I think it's kind of it's an advancement of the whole, like, don't reach for need kind of idea that we've always felt in the draft, where it's like, oh, I desperately need a right tackle, so I'm going to take the 12th guy on my board who's a right tackle instead of the number 1 guy on my board who plays a different position that may not be as immediate of a need. You're willingly taking worse football players just because you need certain positions. Listen, that's what free agency is for. Free agency is for filling your needs before the draft so that you go into the draft with the most freedom to pick the best football players available. And how that works schematically is like we were just saying, it's, if I can't find the role, the guy to fit the role to play a nose tackle, well, guess what? That's why I pay my coaches. I pay my coaches to say, hey, these are the best football players. These are the best 11, the best 15, if you want to, include your rotational and situational guys. You figure out, because that's your job, how to get the best out of these guys, how to play the scheme, mold the scheme, tweak it to fit these really, really good football players. And I think that, again, the best teams in the NFL are really, really good at saying, hey, let's get the best 11 on the field, and then we'll figure out, that's our job to figure out how to get the most out of them. And I think that's how most teams, if not everybody, should approach the draft from now on is, hey, if I have needs, I got to fill them in free agency, even if it's cheap, because going into the draft, I've got to free myself up to, I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers guy. I'm from Tampa. Last year, the Bucs shocked everybody because everybody's like, oh, they need all this defense. They took Emeka Egbuka. They took a receiver that's the deepest position they had. That's the best position they had. And they were like, he's just a damn good football player. Right? We can't pass on this guy. What happens? Mike Evans gets hurt. Chris Godwin gets hurt. And by week 5, Emeka Egbuka is their number 1 wide receiver, and he's lighting the world on fire. He was on pace for a rookie of the year type season before he got banged up himself. So again, I caution fans going into the draft. It's never as simple as number 1 need, number 1 player at that board. There's so much else that goes into it, and it's interesting to see how it all comes together during the draft.
So now that the dream has died in Buffalo of getting Tavondre Sweat, because he just got traded to the Jets about 2 hours ago, a guy that last year I was thinking the Bills should have drafted because they can't stop the run, right? It would have been a perfect guy. But that aside, look at this draft. And again, I guess we're going to change the focus here because maybe they don't need a true nose. But if the Bills are looking, and I don't think they're going to pick one in the first round, but say a guy like Caden McDonald is sitting there at 26, is that a player that you take a swing at, or do you wait? And is there somebody else, Luke, that you think they could get maybe in the second round, either at 60 or if they happen to trade up? Is there, give me something on McDonald first, but then somebody else that they could consider.
Yeah, Cade McDonald's film is so clean, man. He's just so there's never a snap where you're like, oh, he messed that up, or oh, he's on the ground, or oh, he's out of position. Like he's just there, and everything either goes into him and disappears, or it goes away from him because they don't want any part of it. And again, it's hard to do on that Ohio State defense, by the way, because you run away from him and you run into like 3 other top 10 prospects in this draft. So good luck with that. But no, I think that's where the conversation starts for him. I mean, Chicago's right ahead of them at 25, and they need interior help too. So if he's on the board there, he's got to be part of that conversation. If you get to day 2, I'll mention a second-round guy and a third-round guy that I think would fit that. I think Dominique Orange out of Iowa State, best nickname maybe in the draft. They call him Big Citrus, which is fantastic. That's a stock up that raises your grade on my board just if you got a cool nickname. But he's a guy that again is in that 320 plus range where he can control the line of scrimmage. And again, if you're a Bills guy and you're hearing that term about the weight and saying, well, hey, we got Deion Walker on the roster. Deion Walker's 6'7". Okay. Yeah. Deion Walker is not a run stuffing double team guy, because he isn't like the leverage is so hard, right? You can never, if you're 6'7", doesn't matter how much you weigh, you're never going to win pad level. You're never going to win leverage because every offensive lineman on the planet is shorter than you. And so he has a bit of an odd skill set and body frame to match, which is why he's not that true nose for them. But the guy in the third round that I think would be intriguing is Tim Keenan, the third out of Alabama, because he was banged up a little bit this year, didn't play early on in the season, and kind of quietly returned to the starting lineup and was really, really stout for the Crimson Tide down the stretch. And again, he's got that same type of body type where he's shorter and wider, and I think really controls the point of attack really well. He's a guy that in that third or fourth range could end up being a value pick that basically becomes a full-time starter for a team that really does need that true nose.
All right, let's go to edge, because I kind of believe they're going to pick an edge. I mean, that's just kind of my sense.
You probably always should, right, Sal?
I know, and especially the Bills, because they, Greg Rousseau, you mentioned him. He's been a very good player for them. Has he been a true impact player, a game changer? No. They still don't have that guy on the roster. Von Miller wasn't it. He got hurt too early in his tenure here. Joey Bosa wasn't it last year. They need a dominating type of edge rusher. Now, in this 3-4, the way I'm looking at it, they could play Rousseau and Michael Hoyt, who's a nice chess piece, assuming he comes back healthy. To me, Luke, it seems like they would be the stand-up edge guys in this defense with, the 3 linemen, Sanders, Walker, Oliver, some combination on the inside. But they need, if it's not going to be that, they need an edge rusher. Now, what do you think the Bills are looking for? Are they looking for a 285-pound guy who's going to be a pass rusher? Or do they need to find, a guy like Greg Rousseau who weighs 260 and is an athlete? What are you thinking there?
It's so interesting, man, the way the league has, again, evolved to the point where you have all these different types of edge guys and some guys that are just ridiculous athletes for how big they are nowadays. I mean, you think about a guy like Keldrick Falk, who I think's probably not on the board for them at 26. He's coming into the combine at 20 years old. He's 6'5", 280 plus, and is just a ridiculous athlete. And he can move all the way around. He can stand up. He can slide inside.
I talked to him yesterday. He said that. He said he played everywhere.
Line. Yeah. Everywhere. And again, the production is inconsistent, but the talent is just off the board. And I think somebody will take a chance on those traits well before the 26th pick. But for me, it's you have guys like that, and then you have guys like Cassius Howell or Joshua Josephs on day 2 out of Tennessee who are like 240, 245, 250. David Bailey out of Texas Tech's even 250, but they're just so explosive, and they get after the quarterback, and they have the length and can keep the offensive tackles away from their body. And so it's just there's so many different ways to get to the quarterback. And I think what defenses want to do, again, in the modern NFL is be as multiple as possible. They don't want to give away, and offenses are the same way, right? You don't want to give away what you're doing by your personnel and your formation, right? You want to be able to line up however you want and do whatever you want. And what does that mean? It means, well, if I'm in nickel and I've got a 4-man front, whoever's on the edges, I need them to be able to get after the quarterback, but also set the edge against the run, but also maybe drop into coverage and be able to handle themselves in space with lateral movement and not get lost if they're matched up on a running back or a tight end or even a slot receiver. That's a lot to ask of a guy that's anywhere north of 250, 260 pounds. And so it's hard to find those guys. But what I will say about this edge class is when I was putting together the material for our NFL draft magazine that we do every year, which comes out on March 6th, by the way, so definitely be looking for that. I ranked and scouted the top 20 edge players in this class at that point in the process, and I tapped out at like 4th round grades, Sal. Like I was still going. Like I stopped at 20, and I was still not beyond the 4th round in how I graded these guys. And so when you're talking about the depth of a position group in this class, I don't know that there's a deeper group than the edge guy. And what does that also mean? It means that you're probably going to find whatever body type, whatever skill set, or close enough that you really, really need. Again, you'll have guys that are 270 plus that are more of those traditional 4-3 base ends that Buffalo has seen more of during McDermott's time. But you've also got some of those guys that are 240, 250 and a little bit more athletic and can drop into coverage, and they feel more like those situational rushers. But like, look at what Nick Benito has done in Denver as an example, where it's like he comes in the league and like, oh, he's undersized. Who cares? Like, if you're racking up 14, 15 sacks, I really don't care how big you are. And so, like, even a guy like Romello Height out of Texas Tech, who I think is like 235, like, man, if you can get to the quarterback that often, I really don't care. And it doesn't matter where you're lining up or how long your arms are if you're that productive. And so I totally agree with you in terms of Buffalo's instance here. Like, they've got to find that guy. And again, whether that's in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round, or they find a specialist that, again, they can just bring in on those 3rd and longs. And again, this is all connected, right? You find that true nose. Maybe you're forcing guys to be in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 more often because you're stopping the run. And now you can send in that 4th round pick who's maybe a little undersized, but all he does is fly off the ball and get after the quarterback on 3rd downs. And maybe he only has to play 25, 30 snaps a game to have that kind of impact. But to make those plays in clutch moments is just as valuable than a guy who's going to play 65 snaps and just give you average play.
Now, since you mentioned him, and he's been mocked, I've seen a little bit to the Bills in the 1st round. Cassius Howell comes in today with 30 1/4 arms, 30 1/4 inch arms. How much? I mean, I read somewhere there's never been a guy with 32 or less that has ever had a 10-sack season in the NFL. He apparently has the shortest arms of any edge rusher in the last 20 drafts. How much is that going to hurt? Because I know I've seen the highlights. The motor is incredible. He can make plays, but when he gets to the NFL and he's dealing with 6'6" offensive tackles, is that going to hurt him in this draft, you think?
Yeah, I think, every not every year, I guess, but like the history of the NFL, just like anything else, is full of exceptions to the rule, right? And so it's not like he can't. And you'll notice this in the way I scout players. When I write these scouting reports for the magazine and at athlonsports.com, I really don't like to use absolutes, right? I really don't like to say this player cannot or will never or always does this. I'll tell you where the player is now and what he has proven he's capable of and what he struggles with. But I'm not going to be the one who says, hey, he'll never be able to do X, Y, or Z. What I will say is it's going to be really hard. It's going to be very difficult with that lack of length to win in the same ways that he did. Because like you said, go look at the tape. There's a drive. You go back early in the season, Sal. They played Utah State. And there was a drive where Cassius Howell got sacks on first, second, and third down, and they punted. And if you watch all 3 reps too, all 3 he wins differently. He wins with speed, then he wins with power, and then he wins with like some awesome, nasty hand moves and like countering to the inside and like chop. So he's like, it's literally like a 3-play scouting report. You just slide that disc across the desk, and you're like, okay, here's how I can win every type of way. But again, it's against Utah State, and Utah State ain't any NFL team. And it's not just about the physical traits, Sal. It's about when you have that kind of physical deficiency working against you, it just makes it so much harder to work against professionals who every day are in the film room. They're tracking those traits and those tendencies and saying, hey, not only do I have 4 inches on you in reach, but I've got 4 years of NFL experience to be able to shut down whatever you're going to bring to the table because I already know what it's going to cut. So it's again, it's not that he can't be a 10-sack guy. It's just that it's going to be so much harder for him to do it than it is for most other edge rushers. And I think that's why you will see him out of the first round. And I kind of got this feeling a couple weeks ago when DJ's top 50 came out, or I think his first round mock came out, and Cassius Howell was a routine top 20 pick, and he was nowhere to be found. And so that was a tip off to me that the league was already worried about that and views him more as a day 2 guy. Now, could that end up being a huge win for a team on day 2 who's looking for that guy?
Might be the steal of the draft.
Yeah, and so they end up with a guy who maybe does end up being the exception to the rule, and that's the upside of it. But man, it's going to be tough for him to win with that length. There's just no other way around it.
All right, linebacker for the Bills. Look, Terrell Bernard's going to be on the team. I mean, his contract tells you he's going to be on the team.
Yeah, right.
They're gonna move him out, which I think is probably a good thing. I never felt Terrell Bernard was the ideal middle linebacker in Sean McDermott's defense. He's just, you've already got one guy in Milano who's 225, 230. Terrell Bernard's 225. It was always a struggle. And I think that's part of the reason why the Bills defense has struggled against the run. It's just they've had lack of size. I think now, whether it's going to be, I think the best move they probably could make would be, I think Justin Strand from Denver would be an ideal free agent pickup for them. The people talk about Alex Singleton, but he's 33 years old, I think, and he's going to cost more. I think Strand playing in Denver's defense for Leonard would be the way to go here. But if that can't happen, I mean, I think you mentioned at the top CJ Allen. I think maybe it was you. I've talked to so many guys this week.
You're good.
CJ Allen is tremendous. And if he's still there at 26, there's your 3-down guy who could wear the green dot if he had to. Give me your thought on him if he's available, and maybe the Bills think that way. And again, if he's not, tell me about somebody a little bit later, second, third round they could look at there.
Yeah, I mean, again, linebacker is one of those position groups. Last year was awful. Last year's linebacker class was terrible in terms of top talent and depth. This year it's the other way around, right? You've got, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles. Again, whatever you want to do with Arvell Reese, I think he's a better off-ball linebacker than he is an edge guy right now. Sonny Styles is fantastic. I think both those guys should be top 10 locks, especially after what they're about to do in Indy this week. But CJ Allen is a guy, I just posted a new mock draft this morning at athlonsports.com. It's a 3-round mock draft. And I've got CJ Allen going to Tampa Bay at 15 because I think after this week, not just what he does on the field, but when teams get in the interview room with him, the kid is so sharp. He's so smart. And he's such a respected leader already in that locker room. And again, for a championship, like basically miniature NFL program, right? Everybody that comes out of Georgia will tell you how similar it is to running an NFL program. And I think he's just going to be so pro ready. And I think again, a team like Tampa Bay that desperately needs that kind of pass the torch from Levante David type guy, I think he'll be in the conversation starting in that range. So if he is on the board in the mid 20s, I think it'd be a massive win just because, again, I think I saw somebody reporting the other day that he basically had complete control of that defense at Georgia. Like he was able to make the calls. He was able to make the checks. He wasn't just the green dot guy. Like he was the play caller almost, like on the defensive side of the ball. And so when you're able to do that in the SEC, and then you throw in the physical tools that he brings to the table and that size that they're desperately missing. And again, all this works together, Sal. We mentioned it earlier. We talked about you don't have a true nose and all your linebackers are 220 pounds. no wonder you can't stop the run. You can't stop it in the trenches. You can't stop it at the second level because you're getting swallowed up by those offensive linemen. This is what happens when you kind of change over personnel, is you've got to say, hey, again, whether it's a Justin Sternad or somebody that's like, we just need different types of players in the building to raise the floor at these positions, right? Give us somebody with these body types, maybe even if you're not a full-time starter, but we've got to go from being a linebackers are 225 pounds team to a linebackers are 230, 235 plus team. If they can't get Allen at 26, I love the day 2 options. I really do. I mean, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech was one of the best players in college football all year. I think he should have been a Heisman finalist. And again, a lot of these guys are in that range. They're big, they're physical. They're still athletic at that size.
Now, why is that guy, Rodriguez, why is he a second day guy? Because, I mean, everything screams first day.
I know, it's a damn good question. I really don't have a good answer for you. I think especially once you see him test and see how athletic he really is at that size, maybe he's not a day 2 guy. Maybe he's because honestly, if you look at the back end of that first round, Sal, you've got not only Buffalo, but once you get to the late 20s and 30s, I think the Rams, the Broncos, because we mentioned them earlier, they're going to have an outpouring at free agency. He's going to kind of gut that linebacker core. And New England at 31, like all of those teams. If Jacob Rodriguez sneaks into the first round and goes to any one of those teams, I'm not shocked at all. Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas is another guy that probably should go early day 2, but if he's anywhere near the Bills, I would jump at that. Josiah Trotter out of Missouri is fantastic. Jake Golday from Cincinnati is a late second, maybe early third round.
I talked to him today. Great kid, really great kid.
Yeah, and so many of these guys, Sal, and Jake Golday is a great example, he's a converted edge guy. So he absolutely huge. And he's got that kind of skill set and experience where as a defensive coordinator, Jim Leonard's got to look at that guy and say, yeah, most of the time he's going to be off the ball and doing regular linebacker things. But man, if I have some creative stuff where I can bring him in, line him up off the edge, bring him up in the A gap, and then actually send him as a rusher, he's got experience with the hand usage and the moves and the kind of the understanding of what your body needs to do to win pass rushing reps consistently, because he did it earlier in his career. And so those are the guys that I think will be really attractive to him. And again, the depth in this class should give them some really great value well beyond the first round at that position.
All right, we're going to close, Luke, because there's no conversation in Buffalo that wouldn't be complete without talking about wide receivers. It's been the hottest button topic here for a couple of years now. So it's very possible that they take one in the first round. I mean, we've even discussed here in the Buffalo media, hell, they may trade up to get a guy. If they have a chance to get, I don't know if a Mekhi Lemon or, I don't think Tate's going to be available for them, but, Denzel Boston is a guy that I've seen anywhere from like 13 to 26. I don't know if they're going to do it, but if they did, who do you think they'd have a realistic chance at 26? And, is it the right move?
I mean, is it the right move is going to be interesting because, again, wide receiver is loaded this year. So unless there's really a guy you love, I feel pretty comfortable staying at 26 and letting one of those guys fall to me. At the same time, there's a lot of teams ahead of them that need receivers. If Cleveland doesn't take one at 6, they'll need one at 24. I think Pittsburgh will be in play for that at 21. Philly's just going to sit at 23 and take whoever the best player is that falls into their lap like they usually do, and that could be a receiver if somebody's on the board. Boston is the guy that really gets me excited for them. I think they could look at Denzel Boston and think, this is what we were hoping Keon Coleman would be. But he's a little more polished. He's a little more experienced, a little more productive, and a little more proven coming out of Washington. And just everything you'd expect a 6'4", 210, 215 type of guy to be in the red zone and all third down. But he's really surprising after the catch. He's really athletic. He's explosive. He can do more things after the catch than you'd expect from a bigger guy like that. So that's the guy I think. If I'm sitting at 26, I'm really hoping he gets close enough to maybe if I have to move up and give up a minimal pick to go get him, that's the guy I'd be really excited about. If I don't get him, feels a little early for a guy like Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, I think is going to be a really hot name this week. His film is fantastic, and I think he's going to be more athletic than a lot of people expected, and just a clutch receiver in key moments. We saw that in the Penn State game this year for Indiana. But Denzel Boston is the guy that I think makes the most sense in terms of like, we're kind of, 2 years in, Keon Coleman hasn't become that guy. And I think Denzel Boston is the complete receiver, the big athletic red zone guy that can be consistent and dominant on those key, on those key plays. I think that's the type of guy that Josh Allen needs.
DJ mocked Fields in his last one.
He did.
Most recent. I mean, he had a big Senior Bowl week. I understand. Is that enough to jump a guy to that spot, you think? I mean, is Fields a legit idea at 26?
Again, I would feel more comfortable moving back before taking him there, just because I don't know about the athletic ability. The straight line speed is unmeasured. Like, I don't know how fast he is or isn't right now. And again, the highlights are great. He's huge. He's athletic. He can make those big, highlight reel one-handed catches. And so he can do some fun things. I don't know. I would say, especially for a team like Buffalo, we just rattled through so many other needs that they have. I would be surprised sitting at 26 if I'm taking Fields, that there aren't higher ranked prospects, at least on my board, at least 2 or 3 of those other positions that they also need really, really badly, that I'd have to reach past those better talents in order to feel like I'm filling a big need at receiver by taking Fields. That would be the scenario for me. I feel like there's no way there's not a better value at some of those other positions that I need, as opposed to taking Fields there at 26.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. I think Fields was the wrong pick at that spot at 26. Last thing I want to ask you about, because I have a sense they're going to go defense first round, but I think they do probably want to think about wide receiver in the second round. Where are you on Chris Brazell? Because I talked to one guy today who didn't like him at all. I talked to another guy who thinks he is going to be elite. The guy who didn't like him said he's Keon Coleman 2.0. I looked at him and I kind of liked him. What's your take on him?
I mean, I don't think he's Keon Coleman 2.0, at least in terms of like skill set. If you're saying that in terms of like, I think he's a guy that will go higher than he should, and he'll end up not being what was expected. I think I could see that, but in terms of their skill sets, I don't. They're both big, and that's kind of where it ends for me. I mean, the good is exciting in that he's 6'5" and can absolutely fly. Like, if he runs in the 4.3s, I won't be shocked. And at that size, that's just ridiculous, right? But I mean, come on, Sal. We've seen it so many times before. Just because you're big and fast does not mean you can be a successful receiver in the NFL. And so the difficulty with Tennessee wide receivers is that offense is so unique. And listen, I've spoken to Alex Golish, who ran that offense at Tennessee and ran it again at the University of South Florida. And it's unique, and it can be effective at the college level, but I think it does make for a more difficult learning curve when you get to the next level in terms of running an NFL route tree and understanding NFL spacing, because if you watch that offense, those receivers are so far out, like towards the numbers. It's just it's a different offense that nobody in the NFL, like, that's not going to replicate what's happened at what you've done in college. And so, the hands are inconsistent. The route tree is going to need a lot of work before he's ready to be a full-time starter who can run everything you want to put out there. Because again, this is about, if I've got to take extra time to teach you the routes that we run, we're going to get in moments in games where I can't put you on the field because you don't know, you haven't repped enough of what we need you to do in certain moments, that I just have to keep you on the sideline because I got to trust a veteran guy who might not be as athletic as you are or big as you are, but he's going to be in the right place. He knows where to go just because he's done it so many more times than you have. And so that's where that comes into play for me. Now, because of the physical traits that are so rare, if you're telling me in 2 years down the line, because he's 6'5", 200 plus, and can run 4.3, that he's lighting the world on fire, I can't be surprised at that, because those physical traits are so impressive. The problem is, NFL draft history is littered with guys that have incredible physical abilities, but because they don't have the technique and the finer points and of the game, and again, route running for a receiver, especially in today's NFL, man, like, everybody in the NFL is big and fast. Can you separate? Can you do the little things, the mental things, the technique things that will set you apart at the next level? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how big and fast you are. If you can't do those little things, the league is too good. The players are too athletic at a base level and just way too smart. They spend way too much time in the film room. They will know everything about you. You have to be on that level and then let your athletics be on top of that. And if you can't do that, it's going to be real hard for you to make an impact.
Yeah, and right now with the Bills, they're winning out, man. They don't have time
Yeah,
to wait
that's
for
the
a
thing.
guy
They
to
can't wait
develop over
around for
2
that
years.
guy, Sal. They can't wait around for that guy. They need
Exactly.
somebody who's going to help them win a Super Bowl right now. They don't have time for project guys in those early rounds. They really don't.
Okay. All right, Luke, I think we covered a lot of ground. This was awesome today. I really appreciate you being in here with me today. Folks, this has been Believe in Bills, hosted by, presented by FanDuel. Adam Benini, I think, will be back next week, and we'll get back onto a regular schedule. And we got free agency right around the corner. So always lots to talk about. The NFL season never really stops. Luke, thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, Sal. It was great to catch up, man.
All right, everyone have a great day. Take care.